Welcome, everybody, to another high takeaway episode here, our thought leadership series. I'm your host, Brad Stevens, lifetime entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Outsource Access. We have the pleasure of building a growing company in the Philippines. We grew to 500 people in 4.5 years and built another company called One-on-One Connections, helping connect organizations and individuals kind of globally. But more than ever, just all about automating and delegating and helping people redefine how they scale, and could not have a better representation of that here with Mr. Waldo Waldman that's joining me. Thank you for attending, sir.
You got it, Brad. Great to be here. Looking forward.
Waldo and I had a chance to intersect in the LinkedIn ecosystem. You know, we've kind of seen each other's content and both speaking. He's obviously done way more in much bigger places and stages than I have, but we've intersected, and honestly, you know, to the power of content, right? Both of us kind of pushing stuff out, and he ended up recognizing me. I was out in Las Vegas at a conference, and I heard somebody mentioned my name, and I turned around, and it was Waldo, and he had recognized me both from being from Atlanta and being an EO and stuff from LinkedIn. And long story short, we ended up being able to get together back in Atlanta and stayed in touch, and just so aligned on thought leadership and strategy, and just helping people in their path ahead. Certainly entrepreneurship, but all facets of business and life, kind of things that people are navigating, and the lessons that he learned in his background and experience. So thanks so much for being here. And so, we're going to jump in a little bit of different format today with Waldo and his experience. And so, central, and there's so many different themes that he can kind of bring to the table in his background. So I'll ask Waldo just do a quick highlight reel of kind of your background and sort of where you are, and then really nail into this topic of crushing uncertainty and fear, and how that plays into the current ecosystem that we're in the world that we're in right now as adults, as my young children at 5 and 9, the world of AI and globalization. We're in a different place, and it's moving faster than ever. But give everybody a little recap of your background.
Well, great to be here. I always like to say innovation starts with conversation, one handshake at a time. And we got together and broke some bread and had some mutual connections as well. It's pretty amazing, the synergies when you extend a hand and get into a conversation, how so many opportunities and synergies apply in life. So great to be here. For those that don't know, I'm known as the Wingman. I'm a Hall of Fame leadership keynote speaker. I wrote a New York Times bestseller called Never Fly Solo, which is about building collaborative cultures of trust to be able to innovate, adapt, and grow. I carved my teeth in the military as a fighter pilot in combat, and then went to business school, was in a few sales jobs in the tech industry and the financial services, commission only, eating what I killed. And then I pivoted my way into the world of professional speaking, and then was truly tested as an entrepreneur in the thought leadership space. So I've been doing it for 23 years, and I work all across different sections, sectors and verticals, and from financial services, technology, IT, just all over the place. The coolest one was the Denver Broncos football team, which was pretty cool. And so now I do that, and I do some executive coaching for peak performers who are looking to take their business and life to the next level. So that's a 30,000-foot view.
And the stories are incredible. I encourage everybody to go check out his book if you get a chance to see Waldo speak, and kind of just taking you into the world that he's experienced over the years, and just wildly humble about all of it, but just a ton of depth of experience and perspective that he kind of brings into his content. And so let's jump in. You and I were kind of jamming a little bit before we jumped on here, but just central to this concept, and like every human being navigates, right? Whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's kind of just clarity about who they are and sort of where their place is in the world. But at the end of the day, insecurity, fear, uncertainty, and probably at a higher level than they ever have been currently, with all the world that's changing at a faster pace than ever. But right. I know that's central to kind of your message and then what you share. So just want to kind of kick off with kind of what's top of mind for you around that subject. And I know it'll take us into some depth.
So for those that don't know, 3 years into my 11-year active duty flying career, I almost died in a scuba diving accident in the Caribbean. Long story short, panic attack, 35 feet under the water. Never had one before, freaked out, thought I was going to die. And then when I went back into the cockpit a few days later, I developed this claustrophobia. So every time I strapped it to the plane to do what I loved more than anything else, which was to fly jets, I had this pending, claustrophobia, anxiety sneaking up on me, and I never knew when it would attack. And so part of my success, my ability to adapt and pivot through fear, and this mental game of staying present and accomplishing the job during change and anxiety and uncertainty, is the topic of a lot of my speeches and the topic of my upcoming book called Commit, because it's all about commitment, putting your attitude in action, and actually, flying through that fear, making the tough choices, and ultimately growing. Because anybody listening to this who's investing their time is on a growth trajectory. And it's always about the conversation, the new tactic and tool, the mindset shift that you need to have so that you can face risk with more confidence and kick butt in life and grow and serve your family, serve your purpose, serve your community, and serve your bank account. Because we all know when we're more successful and have more money, we can give and enjoy the blessings of our life. And so when people hear, claustrophobic fighter pilot, how the hell did you fly 7-hour night missions in Iraq and Kosovo and get shot at? So that's what the concept is of the book. And one of the core tenets of the book, and there are basically 11, is the preparation piece. It's what are you doing before you strap it to your proverbial cockpit, knowing that the enemy is coming, knowing that the panic may be there and the missiles are coming, and the contingency planning and tools that you have, both technologically wise, as you think about being mission ready, and the cockpit that you have and all the weapon systems on that aircraft, and also the mindset piece, the ability to train your mind to be focused and present and in servant mindset, so that you're distracted from yourself onto those that you're serving. And so my first, wingtip, I guess, would say is when you're dealing with change and uncertainty, when you're going through a struggle in your life and your business, tap into who needs you, tap into what is the positive outcome of you being there. If not, you shouldn't be in the quote unquote aircraft anyway, and focus on helping that person. And when I was in combat flying 7-hour missions, and when I distracted myself from being in that plane to serving my wingman, to accomplishing the job, hitting my target, suddenly my mental issues, the anxiety, the things that are kind of secondary to the job was subjugated to the mission. And so it could be your kids, it could be your client, it could be your career, it could be a personal objective that you had that you really want to kick ass on. And you're like, you know what? If I focus on that, then I'm going to be able to fly through that fear. So if you're not purpose driven and don't think outside your cockpit on who you're helping, your selfishness is only going to permeate more uncertainty and fear.
And I'd like to go back to, where you started with that, which is, the preparation side, right? And, and as you and I were talking when we were having lunch last time, the level of preparation that you put into when you guys were flying missions, it was such ingrained in muscle memory and mindset and just automatic that, you didn't have any fear about being prepared or not, right? You had done everything at such a high level of reps so that you could focus on, the circumstances at hand, right? And so the way you kind of described that was fascinating, I thought. And I think a lot of people, they end up having a lot of fear and concern because they aren't doing the proper reps. They aren't doing the proper preparation, for whatever it may be, whatever career-wise that they're doing, or if it's giving a speech, or if it's, trying to go down a new path or an opportunity, is they're putting a fractional effort in and not getting focused more than ever. In today's world, there's more opportunity for distraction than ever.
Right.
So focus and preparation going hand in hand. Having that as kind of an automatic when you went into combat, so that the rest of it is what you could really focus on, the circumstantial stuff.
Yeah, and I like to say wingmen never wing it, right? We don't fly by the seat of our pants. You can't lead or sell or grow a business by the seat of your pants. So, and we could talk about this for a few hours, but really, it all starts in that mission briefing where you're planning, you're assessing your weapon systems, your tools, and most importantly, the contingencies. Before we walk out the door with our teammates, we're going through different scenarios and we're asking ourselves, what if? What if the weather changes? What if we lose an engine? Where are the nearest airfields? What if one of us gets shot down? Who's taking over? We have a succession plan on every single mission, and you need a succession plan on every one of your business missions as well, through an outsourced wingman, a wingman, through your company, or through a peer, a resource, an ally, a partner. And so always asking yourself, what are the worst things that could possibly happen? Prepare for those and then expect the best. Go in there with a positive attitude, with that confidence that's only a byproduct of your training. And so if you're lacking confidence on those contingencies, you got to get around other top guns who are in your field, masters of their craft, nurture relationships, humble yourself, find out what they're doing, what tools and technologies they're using, what contingencies they've dealt with, and how you can build that confidence. And that also, relates back to the never fly solo concept. You're really only one Mayday call away from solving a problem. But if you're flying solo, if you're not nurturing relationships, providing value first, and saying the three most important words in business, which are I need help or I don't know, then you're going to get your butt shot down. So the preparation piece may involve reaching out, humbling yourself, or putting that jet in the hangar, not taking off today and saying, I need to retool my airframe, put on some new weapon systems on my aircraft. This plane, this F-16, is 50 years old. And the reason why it's still relevant today, one of the most widely used fighters in the world, obviously the F-22 and 35 are still kicking ass, but this is still relevant because of these weapon systems and sensors. And if you look at AI, if you look at outsourced personnel who are experts in areas like social media, digital marketing, or whatever, you got to learn where your weaknesses are, outsource your strengths, strap on, bolt on new weapon systems, train, and then say, okay, now I'm ready to take off and fly, because some people are too quick to get airborne. And what that results in is getting your butt shot down and not accomplishing the mission. So sometimes in war, you may not have that choice. In business, normally it's not life and death, but it is the life and death of the sale, the life and death of your reputation, perhaps, as well.
No, for entrepreneurs, I mean, it's life and death of your, as far as your family and others you're responsible for, and other people who are, depend on employment with, with your company. I mean, I know with us, I mean, we got good to 500 people in 4.5 years, and there was a lot of kind of mouths that we were feeding, and responsibility to all those that you got, you got on board with this mission of building this organization, and, giving them the proper confidence that how to continue it. And so I think on that topic, particularly as it connects to kind of our world when it comes to offshoring and outsourcing and automating and delegating and so forth, is that at the end of the day, human beings can't be the best at everything, right? I mean, and you can't possibly prepare for every scenario, and you can't be the best at every, element. And so, a lot of what we see is, being able to get to what is your genius zone. What are you the absolute best at doing? And being able to kind of get those other things transition, not only for, the leaders, but also for their key staff. We have this 2-question exercise that we always send to everybody, which is, what are you doing that isn't the best use of your time, and how many hours per month are you spending on it? And then what are the things you want to be doing you're not getting to in this organization due to time, money, and knowledge constraints? And there's all these constraints that happen because people are trying to do too many things and trying to be, too versed in too many different topics, versus really zeroing in at what they can be best at doing, right? If you're having to both, build the jet and fly the thing, right, it'd be two different problems, right? As far as what you're the best in the world at doing. I joked around about Days of Thunder, right? In Days of Thunder, and he's kind of coming in and he's like, well, you just got to tell me, how's it behaving out there? Is it loose? Is it not? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You got to explain to me, like, how does the vehicle work, right? When you're out there on the track, like, how does it operate? So you can give me feedback and so forth. He's like, all I know how to do is drive the car, right? So that's an extreme example you don't want, right? But it was kind of, he was amazing at driving the vehicle, but had no idea about how it operated or any of the components. And that's part of what was one of his shortcomings, when he was driving around the track, is he didn't know how, he didn't need to be an expert on how to build the thing, but at least he had to be able to give feedback to his team so that he could do his genius zone, which is drive the vehicle.
And enjoy it too. Like, we want to have fun. We want to enjoy the journey. We want to be in that genius zone. Could be maybe your most useful leverage of your effort, but also, hey, you got to make sure that you're enjoying it. And I know I'm really good at things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing. And I got to ask myself, how do I outsource that so I stay in my zone? Marketing, writing, speaking, shooting videos, and building relationships. But you brought up a really important point, Brad, about really understanding all the other teammates that are part of your organization. I find a lot when I'm coaching leaders and speaking with the organizations, is that they don't get out there and walk the flight line and get to know the maintainers, the folks fueling the jet, or tightening down the weapon systems or the air traffic controls, all those folks who are part of that ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And appreciating what they do, and then building those relationships, because, hey, we all know at Sunday night at 9:00 p.m., when you got to get that proposal out, or that emergency comes in from a client that you need help with, you got to cash in some relationship chips and call in that unsung hero who's in the trenches, turning the wrenches, right?
Yeah.
Folks, may not be a race car, but it's a jet, all those folks. So my advice to the people listening to this is, don't forget to stay connected and make sure that you're building relationships and appreciating all those folks who are understanding how your aircraft is flying or your race car is operating. Because when you need them to go to the next level and put in that effort and sacrifice their time, they're going to know that you care about them, that you appreciate them, that you value them, and they'll put in the extra effort, because we're not flying solo. And I know I've been in a lot of situations where I didn't have a clue, but I picked up that phone, and people that I had a relationship with saved my butt and helped me. And just like you, we talked before about your camera had some issues, right? You were able to pivot through that. I've been on big virtual calls where it was going on in an hour, and I called up my buddy out of Ottawa, Canada, and said, dude, I need some help. And we got on a Zoom call and cashed that relationship in, and he saved my tail. And I think that's always important to do that. And then last and not least, when it comes to this topic, are you the type of guy or gal where others can come to you for help? Are you donating your time, making introductions like you've done for me and we've done for each other, right? Saying, hey, I've got this tool, Waldo, check this out, or call this guy. I'm just talking to, I work with the folks at LeaderCast, right? Due to an introduction that you made. I just got the proposal today. We're going to talk about it. And so being that resource, the go-to guy or gal that's giving their wings away and building that reputation capital that makes you a valued resource and somebody that others want to help. But you got to plant the seeds and do the work and build the relationships first before you can build them on for yourself, right?
Yeah, no, I kind of use this phrase like relationship equity. So that's one thing, you always get asked that question. If you go back to your younger self, what would you tell them? And, one thing I would say is my 20s is just be much more intentional about the relationships you're building in life. As we gotten older, we all realize how critical that those are. And I would have been more intentional. Didn't have LinkedIn or, like this tool Clay I use, which is like a digital, Rolodex now. But, when I was 22 years old and I'm randomly paired with some guy to, go play golf and, some executive, and we chat, and I go back to my 22-year-old self and get that guy's name, get his number, stay in touch with him. Right. You never know where these relationships, that book, Dan Kennedy and, or Dan Sullivan and
Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah. Right. The who, not how. Right. I mean,
I have who, not how. Yeah.
A who solution in your life, usually, not a how. And it can save you a lot of blood, sweat, and tears a lot of times. But you got to be intentional about maintaining and building those connections.
But the intentionality should just be, there's a lot of folks that say, say no. You got to learn how to say no to. You say no to block your time, schedule your time. You got to be really careful. And I agree with that. But let me tell you, especially if you're just starting out, you bet your ass you better be saying yes a lot more than no. If it means you sacrificing your time, putting in the effort, going the extra mile, working that 14 or 16-hour day to build that relationship capital, then do it. Say yes. Say yes before you could say no. And then, because we only have so many hours in a day, and our kids and our spouses and partners and our freaking stress to deal with, then we really need to be selective about saying no. But I'm a yes man in general. And I think you are too. But yes has its sacrifices, but it sure as heck has its benefits as well.
No, it's definitely and being a part of, organizations like EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, I've been a part of for 15 years and joined YPO a couple of years ago. And, it's surrounding yourself around, those people that just, I kind of talk about it as kind of my hot air balloon, right? That sometimes you're going through life and you're drifting down, and these relationships or that lever I can pull that throws a flame in the balloon and kind of pops me back up and gets me back in a good spot, if I need help, need support. So yeah, no doubt. And that's, I've talked about, actually I ended up creating a whole other company, as I talked about in the intro, called One-on-One Connections, just to drive connections, member-based organizations, the values, the members themselves, just get them knowing one another at scale. And it's a magical thing, right? But we just got to be more intentional about it than ever. We got to teach our young people this as they kind of head into that that path. So, well, guys, we're gonna have another follow up. And Waldo and I, we realized there's hours of stuff he and I could talk about. Wanted to see how the path we took, but particularly with his new book that's coming out, Commit, and just believe more than ever. And it's particularly in a place right now where we got access to so much information, so many options, so much AI, so many different things. I think we're going to see people stalling out and uncommitting more than ever because there's just so many different directions that we can go. And so figuring out how you make that decision and commitment and how you need to, you got to be intelligent, surround yourself and do your proper due diligence, right? But at the end of the day, you got to pull the trigger. So we kind of dove into one of his first lessons there about preparation. And so Waldo, I'd love to, maybe you do a couple of small bite-sized series with this and kind of dive into a few more of those lessons as kind of a precursor to kind of your book coming out and share some of the high-level tips because this is exactly in the crosshairs of what, entrepreneurs and business executives need to be hearing today for sure. You got it. Looking forward to that as well, Brad. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, you can go check out Waldo. Again, amazing speaker. If you're looking for someone to come speak for your organization, you go to yourwingman.com. Phenomenally built website. I commend Waldo from our first Windows website. Just so well done, so well architected. Great content there. You can learn about his speaking, learn about coaching. You can learn about initial information kind of coming out on it for his upcoming book. And in our world, just go to outsourceaccess.com and send an email to tools@outsourceaccess.com. Put Waldo in the subject line where it came from. We'll send you a whole set of resources. That 2-question exercise I talked about, a great template to kind of begin this journey. We'll send your way. But thanks again so much for your time, Waldo. I really appreciate it. And look forward to maybe figuring out another series as we move ahead and excited to see your book coming out. Enjoyed it, Brad. Keep pushing it up. Absolutely. Take care, everybody.